and the founder of the Nicaraguan University Alliance. In 2018, el 16 de mayo de 2018, the 16th of May of 2018, Lesther famously stood up to Ortega and demanded that he step down. In September 2018, Alemán fled the country while police were searching for him, but returned a year later. He was one of the dozens of opposition figures arrested in 2021 during the run-up to the November elections, when Nicaragua's two main opposition parties announced the formation of a coalition aimed at winning the 2021 elections and ending President Ortega's rule. He was charged, as Hilal said this morning, with conspiracy to undermine national integrity and sentenced to 13 years in prison. In 2023, Lesther was one of the more than 200 political prisoners expelled from Nicaragua to the United States. I went and rewatched Lesther's speech when he stood up to Daniel Ortega, who has been in power for at least 28 years. What courage, Lesther, what eloquence. Call us to battle for freedom, Lesther. Please, call us to battle for freedom with the power of your words. Lesther Alemán, everyone.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lesther Alemán y El Faro, and I was born and grew up in Nicaragua, and I'm here before you. The fact that I'm here is a miracle. I'm professionally a communicator, and by vocation, I'm a political activist. I set up the Nicaraguan University Alliance that was established by young people, for young people. My country is currently controlled by a dynastic and bloody dictatorship, Nicaragua. We're a nation where thinking differently and calling for your rights can cost your life, prison sentence, or exile. We have more than 6.2 million people, and they and also a million exiles as well. Ortega has absolute control of the levers of power, together with his wife, Rosario Murillo. On the 16th of May in 2018, which is 6 years ago tomorrow, in fact, there was a dialogue that was set up between sections of the opposition and the government. Ortega was about to take the floor when I found that I was right next to him, and less than 2 meters away. And without using force, but just using the strength of my own voice. I was 20 years old. I didn't know what words I was going to use to scold him, but I knew that I had to say something. And I had to face him with the truth, this dictator which has condemned us as a nation. I managed to say these words. This is not a dialogue here. This is just to negotiate your exit, because you are a murderer. And up until today, and I still say that, you are a murderer.
No me equivoqué.
I wasn't wrong. If you look at the systems of repression and violence against the civilian population, we now have 355 murders, most of them young people, and there are 1,500 political prisoners who have been tortured in various ways, physical, psychological, emotional, and this has been torture over long periods of time. At the moment, there are 121 Nicaraguans who are in prison as prisoners of conscience in La Modelo or La Esperanza prison. And also, as I said, there's about 1 million Nicaraguans who have been forced into exile. In recent history, there is no precedent such as this, certainly not in the history of Nicaragua. The strength of young people cannot support this tottering regime. The moral voice, the desire for democracy, the pacific settlement of disputes, we believe you cannot get rid of that will. And threats do not remove that desire. Now, I spoke for 4 minutes, and this was 6 years ago, and this changed my life completely, and I'm not worried about that. I don't regret it. Now, despite the cost, exile in the United States, because there was reward on my head, persecution, 20 months in prison, a 15-year prison sentence, and loss of all my rights, those rights which define me as a human being. And also, I was deprived of my nationality, and I was removed from all official registers. In Nicaragua, ladies and gentlemen, democracy, justice, and liberty can actually cost you your life. It hurts when I breathe was the last words of a 15-year-old lad who was, because he had basically a bullet had gone through his throat. Please don't kill me. I'm not doing anything, was the plea of Junio Gaitan when a police officer pointed a gun at him and killed him when he was just 15 years of age. And both of these murders, and both of the murderers are now got off, there's impunity. And to be a young, to be a farmer, to be in opposition, to be indigenous, to be Afro-descendant is a crime, and it can mean death. And after he came back to power in 2006, Daniel Ortega violated institutionality, democracy, and our national sovereignty. He wants to stay in power, and he wants to do this by moving opponents. And he wants to control the state, the government, the army, and the police. And there was electoral fraud in 2021, where we were preparing that as an opposition so that we could be part in the general elections, which would really reset things. And we want to go through the civic path. We want to do this in an ordered and pacific way. But Ortega decided to destroy this, and he decided that he would go through any red line, and he would simply mock the international community, the Organization of American States, the UN, the EU, and even the Vatican. In April 2021, I became the spokesperson of the Electoral Alliance, which brought together all the three candidates and the opposition parties. And a few after that, then the hunt was on for us. Just a few days after that, a lot of us were arrested through in the night. There was no arrest warrant, there was no search warrant, but we were simply taken into custody. And I was arrested on the 5th of July of that year. And my mother saw this happen, and she was telling them not to hit me on the floor. There were more than 100 police who were really ferocious in the way they took it out on me. And they were doing this, they told me, but they were told not to kill me on the orders of Daniel Ortega. I was in a cell that was just 2 meters by 2 meters. I was completely sealed off. There was artificial light 24 hours a day. I had no access to doctors, information, lawyers, visits, and there was certainly nothing like due process. According to the judges, I was guilty of violating national sovereignty and betraying my country. And this was simply by talking at places such as this, just talking about what goes on there in Nicaragua. After 20 months in prison, I was interrogated practically every day at any time of the day. And my torturer said that although you don't deserve to live, you should thank Comandante Ortega because he's ordered that you stay alive, because he is so merciful. And therefore, you get the idea of the great, untouchable and powerful leader, because a lot of people still see him in a romantic light because of the revolution in 1979. Up to the 9th of February 2023, they took me to the airport. They took me straight to the airport, to the steps of the plane, and there was a plane which had crew from the United States, and we were therefore out of prison, but the price of this was exile. We were sent into exile by the dictatorship. We flew to Washington, and the National Assembly approved a law which deprived of us our nationality and any family. So basically, we have now created stateless people in the country. And this is basically a North Korean model, like a sort of Taliban of the tropics. And nothing is done by international organizations. And there's general impunity for Nicaragua. And they can basically torture people over a long time, in both time and space, and then deprive them of their nationality. Because basically they chase people, go after people, and at the same time they allow the drug traffickers through, and they also provide some refuge to illegal immigration to the United States. So what we want to do is to work in and before leaving the country, I kissed the ground and I promised to go back. But you can be certain that Ortega will lose any of his wiles, any of his tricks that he can, but nothing will change as what is going to happen to him. So to the international community, please do not take your gaze away from Nicaragua. You cannot justify a system and say that an economy is doing well when it's based on simply remittances. And therefore, it is wrong to exile nationals. We should not close the doors to the thousands of Nicaraguans who are seeking exile in the United States, in Europe, and other parts of the world. It is now time to isolate the regime financially and to support the opposition which is seeking liberty within the country and outside the country. And there are 128 prisoners, political prisoners, and we should call for the end to torture. And we believe that Europe, like Argentina, should accept jurisdiction so that victims can bring their case to courts, international courts, so that there is justice. The international community should stop being faint-hearted. It is important that we defend these rights, not only those which have been communicated. We should not just have your words, we should also have your actions. Henry is not alone. Jason is not alone. Adela is not alone. Olesi is not alone. Eliseo is not alone. These are political prisoners. They are not alone. Viva Nicaragua.
Que viva Nicaragua Libre. Thank you, Lesther. Your words and everyone else's here are more powerful than 10 military divisions. And